Welcome back, YouTube. Today, I'm going to walk you through why comparing yourself to other individuals throughout your goal or during your goal is a terrible, terrible idea. For example, the amount of times we've heard people talk about someone else and be jealous or be annoyed that they seemingly can eat what they want and not gain weight. We've seen that many, many times, okay? And that level of comparison is just going to lead to frustration and anger and not going to help you with your goal whatsoever. I'm going to walk you through one, why we shouldn't be comparing ourselves, and two, scenarios like that then might appear that people have it easier or people can eat what they want and not worry about gaining weight. If you do find this video helpful, please drop a like. If you have any questions throughout, throw them down below. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe because it will help me out a ton. Okay, so before we get into specific examples of other individuals and why their process and progress might look so different, let's first talk about why we shouldn't be comparing ourselves to other people anyway, because it's pointless, doesn't help, and just leads to frustration. Now, the main reason for that is because there's simply too many individual factors and considerations that just take place. Okay, so when we're comparing ourselves to other individuals, the things we're normally comparing ourselves with, whether we know it or not, is how many calories that individual needs, okay? Or if we're talking in terms of fat loss, how many calories that individual requires to drop body fat, okay? So again, we're not going to go into the specific example yet, but when we see people talking about that individual can seemingly eat what they want and still drop body fat, what we're actually really talking about is just how is that individual apparently, taking in more calories than us and still managing to drop fat easier, which we're going to come on to in a minute. But what we need to consider and understand is that there's so many different factors and considerations that go into an individual's calorie needs, okay? And this is why comparing ourselves to someone else is completely pointless and just leads to frustration and anger, because no two people are going to be the same. For example, what determines how many calories you need, whether this is to drop body fat, whether this is to maintain your weight, gain weight, right? You're going to have stuff like general body weight, okay? Someone who is typically heavier in body weight than someone else is going to typically require more calories, okay? Might even burn more calories with similar levels of exercise. People who hold more muscle mass are going to burn more calories at rest, okay? So if we already compare these two scenarios, you might have someone at the exact same weight who one individual holds more body fat, and one individual holds more muscle mass. The individual that holds more muscle mass is likely going to be burning more calories at rest. So their calorie needs are going to be completely different. Let's take into account stuff like condition. Individuals who are more well conditioned are likely potentially going to find it, let's say, easier as a loose term to, let's say, go through their fat loss goal, right? The recovery is going to be better. The performance is going to be better. Therefore, they might be able to burn more calories, with a similar amount of training. But if we take these sort of two individuals and then we look at it, the individual with more body fat might be wondering why that other individual is finding it so much easier to drop body fat. And these are the sort of factors we have to take into consideration. Other things can be such as age, other things can be such as height, other things can be just general activity day to day, right? There's so many different factors that are going to determine how many calories one individual needs in comparison to another. And this is why comparing those two things, if you don't have all this information, is utterly pointless. So let me now give you an example of one individual who might seemingly be able to eat what they want and get away with it, and then another individual who might seemingly, and you might find yourself in this situation, feel like you have to be on the ball, quite strict with what you're eating and what you're doing to even just get a fat loss response. Okay, so let's say we have two individuals. Individual number one seemingly can eat what they want, not even have to worry about dropping body fat, can maintain quite easily, or can just drop body fat quite easily. Whereas individual number two feels as though, they're at a disadvantage. They have to be a lot stricter, more on the ball with what they're doing to even just get a fat loss response. Okay, so in a nutshell, this individual finds it harder than this individual to drop body fat. Now, and if this person compares their situation to this person, they might get very frustrated and then, feel like it's pointless, useless, everything's against them, and might give up. But when we break this down, we can start to see why this individual might actually be finding it a lot easier to maintain weight or to lose body fat than this individual. We might notice that day to day, this individual is just a lot more active. Maybe this individual has a more active job. Maybe this individual focuses more on getting steps day to day. Maybe this individual takes the stairs more than this individual. Maybe this individual walks to shops, walks further away. Maybe this individual has a job where they're standing more through the day, and this individual has a job where they're sitting most of the day. Even little factors like that can contribute to a lot more calories expended across a week. Maybe this individual has more muscle mass than this individual. And again, the more muscle mass you have, even though it's small differences, they build up and it, contributes across a week, across months. The more muscle you have, the more calories you're going to burn at rest. So maybe this individual's burning more just simply at rest. Maybe this individual's slightly younger. Maybe they're slightly taller. Maybe they're just fitter, more well conditioned. And therefore, again, at rest, is going to be burning more calories than this individual. Who might be older, who might even be shorter, lighter, right? It's not uncommon to see a lot of females who are quite short and very light already, who are wanting to drop body fat, have to be quite controlled and almost strict with their food intake, because to create that calorie deficit, their food intake just has to be quite low. And that is just the unfortunate reality based on these sort of factors that you have to take into consideration. So it's not that this individual actually has it any easier, really. Okay, or it's not that this individual is in more favor than this individual. It's just that there's certain factors that are allowing this individual to either drop body fat easier, i.e. be in a calorie deficit easier, or maintain their weight easier, right? And again, yes, some of this will be down to genetics, like being taller, right, being younger, which is nothing you can do about. But a lot of this is also going to be down to other factors which people can control, i.e. how active you are day to day, how much muscle you hold, which some of it will be genetic, but if you've gone through phases of building muscle, then it's not. But the reality is, comparing yourself to another individual going through the same goal, or even worse, some people compare themselves to individuals who are in completely different goals. Let's take that example we've just been through. Individual number one might actually just be focused on maintaining their weight, which means because they're not trying to create a calorie deficit, they actually might just be able to eat more in general because they're not trying to drop body fat, they just want to maintain. Whereas individual number two, who's comparing themselves to number one, might actually be trying to drop body fat and therefore can't have as much flexibility, has to be a little bit more restrictive, has to have lower food intake. And if they're comparing different goals, all of a sudden they're seeing one individual who's being really flexible, seemingly eating more, and they're just wondering why. So first and foremost, don't compare yourself to other individuals. And secondly, if you are going to compare yourself to other individuals, at least understand the factors that you have to take into consideration that you are essentially comparing. Because if you don't do that, you're just going to end up making yourself frustrated, confused, and end up probably throwing the towel in. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please drop a like. If you have any questions throughout, throw them down below. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe as it helps me out a ton. I'll catch you on the next one.